approaching 7:10. A trip to hospital is rarely pleasant, and for patients in England, the amount of charge for parking while you're there often adds to the ordeal.
Even though hospital parking is free for most people in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, new figures show a quarter of trusts in England have increased their fees.
Well, the government says scrapping the charges is not an option as the money feeds back into the NHS. But campaigners like Michelle Soan from the charity Macmillan Cancer Support think that that's unfair. Good morning to you, Michelle.
Morning.
What do you think then? The government says that free parking at hospitals in England would cost £100 million. So by charging people, that's money that's saved or goes into NHS care, doesn't it?
Well, the first thing to say is that nobody chooses to have cancer, so it's totally unfair that you're then charged to receive your treatment, and this is no small issue. So just this morning on Twitter, there are lots and lots of people tweeting and saying this is a huge issue for them. It's costing them hundreds of pounds. There was one man saying that his daughter had to go in every day for 5 weeks. That's very common for a course of radio or chemotherapy. So it's costing people hundreds of pounds. And when hospitals say that actually they can't afford to provide free parking, they're actually saving up to £200 a day by treating people as outpatients. So you no longer have to stay in hospital overnight to have your treatment. You're going there to and fro, back and forward every day, but that means that people are then having to pay, so they're passing those costs on whilst they're saving about £6,000 per patient.
You are campaigning on this issue, particularly, as you say, because you think that cancer patients get a raw deal here, do you?
Absolutely. I mean, the problem is when you're diagnosed with cancer, most people actually find that their income is then cut by half. So their household income's cut by half. There's a recession going on. Everyone's struggling financially. So to then kick people when they're down and actually charge them to get their treatment, and like I say, it's not just little charges. It's on average about £325 per person when they have a course of treatment. So it's just not fair. It's essentially a tax on illness for people who've got cancer through no fault of their own.
And when you talk to hospitals, trusts about this, are they sympathetic?
Well, the issue is, actually, the government issued guidance in 2006 said that hospitals should provide free or reduced parking for patients, like cancer patients, who have regular treatment. But the problem is that guidance had no teeth, so there's no repercussions if a hospital doesn't actually enforce it. There's no financial penalty. But the other issue is, actually, a lot of hospitals are providing concessions, but they're then not telling the patients about it. So a lot of people, again, on Twitter this morning, and we know at Macmillan that this is a common problem, were saying we paid every day for this 5 weeks of treatment, but actually we found out at the end we could have had a concession. So the message really is if you're going through cancer, then do check, because you might actually be entitled to a concession.
Well, the Health Minister Simon Burns has provided a statement. We expect patients whose healthcare needs require frequent or extended visits at hospital to be treated fairly, and car parking policies should not discriminate against them. So your advice is then that, meanwhile, while I think it's a quarter of trusts in England putting up their charges,
Yes.
You're saying to both patients and trusts, be open and honest about the fact that if you have a chronic condition
Yes.
or you have ongoing treatment, you may actually not need to pay for parking at all.
Yeah, I mean, not all hospitals are providing these concessions, so we're still extremely worried that some are still charging. But really, like you say, you know, they should be providing those concessions, and if they are, people need to be asking for them, because this is extremely stressful. If you think about you going through treatment, you shouldn't be worrying about have you got enough change to put money in the meter, and then if your treatment overruns, oh, you know, do I take this drip out or do I run out and fill up the meter? You know, it's extremely stressful for people who really just need to be focusing on getting better.
All right, Michelle, thanks very much indeed. Michelle Soan from Macmillan Cancer Support.
Time now is